The church bells tolled softly as I stood at my mother's casket, my heart breaking not just from grief, but from the betrayal unfolding before me. My sister-in-law Sophia's voice cut through the somber silence like a knife. "Since we're all gathered here," she announced, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "James wants everyone to know he's found true happiness with Amanda. They don't need marriage papers or legal complications." The gathered mourners gasped. My husband James, standing next to his mistress Amanda, didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He just smirked, his hand resting possessively on her waist. I remained silent, tears falling freely now, not for him, but for my mother who warned me about James just weeks before she passed. My name is Elizabeth, and at 34, I never imagined I'd be burying my mother and losing my husband on the same day. But perhaps I should start from the beginning, from the moment I first suspected something was wrong. 3 months ago, my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. During one of her lucid moments in the hospital, she grabbed my hand and whispered, "The church cameras, Elizabeth. Check the security footage. James, Sophia, they're planning something." I dismissed her words as medication-induced paranoia. James had been distant, yes, but I attributed it to stress. He'd been working late, taking mysterious calls, and spending more time with his sister Sophia. I was too focused on my mother's deteriorating health to question it deeply, but Mom kept insisting. "Promise me you'll check," she pleaded. Even in her final days, she was trying to protect me, so I promised, more to ease her mind than anything else. The night before the funeral, I couldn't sleep. My mother's words haunted me. At 2 a.m., I drove to the church where she'd been a devoted member for 30 years. Father Michael, who'd known my mother for decades, was still awake, preparing for the service. "Elizabeth," he said, his face etched with concern. "I was going to call you tomorrow. There's something you should see." He led me to his office and pulled up the security footage from the past month. My hands trembled as I watched the scenes unfold on his computer screen. There was James meeting with Sophia and a blonde woman, Amanda, in the church garden late at night. Their voices were clear through the high-quality audio system my mother had helped the church install last year. "Everything's arranged," Sophia was saying. "We'll announce it at the funeral. Elizabeth will be too devastated about her mother to make a scene, and since there's no marriage registration or proper documentation, she can't claim anything." James laughed. "Perfect timing. She's been so distracted with her dying mother, she hasn't even noticed I've moved most of my assets. Amanda and I can start fresh, no legal ties, no messy divorce." Amanda's voice was sickeningly sweet. "What about the house? It's in both their names, isn't it?" "Don't worry," Sophia assured her. "I've got a plan for that too. By the time Elizabeth realizes what's happening, it'll be too late." I watched multiple meetings, each one revealing more of their calculated plan. They'd chosen my mother's funeral as the perfect moment to humiliate me, believing my grief would render me powerless to respond. Father Michael placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Your mother noticed them meeting here. She couldn't prove anything, but she knew something was wrong. That's why she insisted on upgrading the security system last month. She wanted to protect you, even after she was gone." I sat there, numb with shock, but also filled with a strange sense of calm. My mother, even in her final weeks, had been working to expose their betrayal. She'd known somehow and had laid the groundwork for me to discover the truth. "I've saved copies of everything," Father Michael said quietly. "Your mother made me promise to keep them safe. She also left something else for you." He handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a letter and a USB drive. My mother's handwriting, shaky but determined, filled the page. "My dearest Elizabeth, if you're reading this, my suspicions were right. I've watched James and Sophia plotting in our church, desecrating this sacred space with their schemes. But darling, I've made sure you're protected. The USB contains account statements, property deeds, and other documents you'll need. I've also recorded conversations I overheard between them when they visited me in the hospital, thinking I was too medicated to understand. Don't let them see you break. You're stronger than they know. When they make their move, remember, I've given you everything you need to fight back. All my love." Mom, Father Michael helped me review the contents of the USB drive. My mother, despite her illness, had meticulously documented everything. She even hired a private investigator to track James' financial movements over the past 6 months. So now, standing at her funeral, watching Sophia's dramatic announcement, I felt my mother's strength flowing through me. James thought he timed this perfectly, announcing his betrayal when I was at my lowest point. He thought my grief would silence me. But my mother, my brilliant, forward-thinking mother, had ensured I wouldn't face this alone. As Sophia finished her announcement, I wiped my tears and straightened my shoulders. The security cameras were still recording, capturing every moment of their cruelty. James stepped forward, probably expecting me to crumble. "Elizabeth," he said, his voice patronizing, "I hope you understand. These things happen." I looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. He had no idea what was coming. My mother's last gift to me wasn't just evidence. It was the strength to stand up for myself. "Yes, James," I replied softly. "These things do happen. And sometimes they're caught on camera." His smile faltered, just slightly, but enough to let me know my words had hit their mark. Sophia's triumphant expression wavered. But this was just the beginning. My mother had taught me well. Sometimes the best revenge is letting your enemies think they've won, right before you show them how badly they've lost. After the funeral, I maintained my composure as mourners offered their condolences, many avoiding eye contact after Sophia's shocking announcement. James and Amanda had already left, probably to celebrate their victory, while Sophia lingered, watching me with a smug smile. Back at my mother's house, I sat in her study, surrounded by the familiar scent of her perfume and decades of memories. The USB drive from my mother contained more than just security footage. There were detailed financial records, emails she'd intercepted between James and Sophia, and most importantly, a document that made my heart stop, proof that James had forged my signature on property transfer papers. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "I'll send someone to pack my things tomorrow. Don't make this difficult." I smiled, thinking about the cameras I'd installed throughout our house last week, following the trail of breadcrumbs my mother had left me. Sure enough, the footage showed James and Sophia entering our home multiple times while I was at the hospital, removing documents and valuables, discussing their plans in detail. The best part, Sophia had said in one recording, is that she doesn't even know the house is practically empty. We've been moving things out for weeks. James had laughed. "Elizabeth's too trusting. She never even checked the safe or the accounts. Amanda and I can start fresh, and she'll have nothing." What they didn't know was that my mother had already helped me secure the most important things. 3 weeks before she passed, she'd insisted I move all my important documents and family heirlooms to her house. "Just in case," she'd said with a knowing look. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Father Michael. "Elizabeth," he said gently, "there's something else your mother wanted you to know." He handed me another envelope. "She made me promise to give this to you after the funeral." Inside was a letter from my mother's lawyer, dated just 2 weeks ago. My hands trembled as I read it. My mother had transferred her house and considerable assets into a trust in my name, with explicit instructions that neither James nor his family could ever access it. "Your mother was a brilliant woman," Father Michael said. "She knew James would try to take everything, so she made sure you had a safe haven." I nodded, tears flowing freely now. Even in her final days, my mother had been protecting me, setting up a safety net I didn't even know I needed. The next morning, James arrived with Amanda and Sophia, pulling up in a moving truck. I watched through the window as they strutted up to the front door, clearly expecting to find me broken and defeated. "Elizabeth," James called out as they entered, "we're here for my things. Don't make this dramatic." I stepped out of the kitchen, calm and collected. "Of course not. But before you start, there's something you should see." I led them to the living room where I'd set up a large TV screen. Without a word, I pressed play. Their faces paled as they watched themselves on the security footage, discussing their plans in detail, laughing about deceiving me, plotting to strip me of everything. "You recorded us?" Sophia sputtered, her confidence cracking. "Actually, my mother did," I replied. "The church's security system, remember? The one she insisted on upgrading. She heard your late-night meetings, saw everything you planned." James stepped forward, his face darkening. "Those recordings won't hold up. There's no marriage registration, no proper documentation. You can't prove anything." I smiled, thinking of my mother's foresight. "That's where you're wrong, James. Let me show you something else." I played the footage from our house cameras, showing him and Sophia removing items, forging documents. Then I pulled out the file my mother's lawyer had prepared. "Forging my signature on property transfers? That's a serious crime," I said, watching their faces drain of color. And there's more. Every late-night meeting, every fraudulent document, every conspiracy between you three, it's all documented. Amanda started backing away from James, her confident facade crumbling. You said this would be simple. She hissed at him. You said she wouldn't fight back. They never thought I would, I said quietly. That's why they chose my mother's funeral to make their announcement. They thought grief would make me weak. Sophia tried to regain control. You're bluffing. You can't prove any of this. I turned to her, feeling a strength I hadn't known I possessed. Would you like to explain to the police why you're on camera discussing how to defraud me? Or should we start with the forged documents? James's face had turned ashen. He knew I had him cornered. My mother hadn't just left me evidence, she'd left me the power to destroy their carefully constructed plan. Get out, I said calmly. All of you. My lawyer will be in touch about the stolen property and forged documents. Standing in the doorway of my mother's house. My house now. I watched them retreat, their grand scheme crumbling around them. My mother's voice seemed to whisper in my ear. Never let them see you break, darling. Show them what you're made of. And that's exactly what I intended to do. 3 months after the funeral, I sat in my lawyer's office, watching James and Sophia squirm as the evidence mounted against them. The police investigation had uncovered even more than my mother's recordings. Bank transfers, forged documents, and a trail of premeditated fraud that spanned months. Amanda had already turned on them, providing a detailed statement about their plans in exchange for immunity. She'd revealed how James had promised her a luxurious life with my assets, how Sophia had orchestrated the timing of their announcement to cause maximum humiliation. Your mother, my lawyer said, sliding another document across the desk, was thorough in her documentation. She even recorded their conversations during her hospital stays when they thought she was sedated. The recordings were damning. James and Sophia, discussing their plans beside my dying mother's bed, not realizing she was alert and recording everything on her phone. Their cruelty had been their undoing. James attempted one last manipulation. Elizabeth, he pleaded, we can work this out. Think about our history together. I thought about our history all right, how he'd planned to leave me destitute, how he conspired with his sister to humiliate me at my mother's funeral, how they'd laughed about my trust and grief. The only thing we're working out, I replied calmly, is how much you'll be paying in restitution. Sophia, her designer outfit now wrinkled from stress, attempted to intervene. This is ridiculous. We're family. Family? I turned to her. Family doesn't plot to steal someone's home. Family doesn't use a mother's funeral to hurt her daughter. You're not family, you're criminals. The evidence was irrefutable. James faced charges for fraud and forgery. Sophia was implicated in conspiracy and theft. Their carefully constructed plan had crumbled, leaving them facing serious legal consequences. My mother's house became my sanctuary as I rebuilt my life. I discovered she'd left me more than just evidence. She'd left me a legacy of strength. The trust she'd set up protected not just her assets, but also contained letters of encouragement, advice, and love. Remember, she'd written, sometimes people show you who they really are. Believe them the first time, but be smarter than they expect. One evening, as I sorted through old photos in the study, I found a final note from her. Dearest Elizabeth, by now you've probably faced their betrayal head-on. I'm sorry I couldn't shield you from their cruelty, but I could prepare you for it. You're stronger than James or Sophia ever imagined. Their mistake was underestimating you and me. I've watched you grow into an amazing woman. Don't let their actions dim your light. Sometimes losing people who betray us is actually a gain. You're free now, darling. Build the life you deserve. All my love, Mom. 6 months later, I stood in my mother's garden, now blooming with the roses she loved. James and Sophia had both taken plea deals, avoiding jail time but facing significant financial penalties and probation. Amanda had moved to another state, her dreams of luxury destroyed by her own testimony. Father Michael visited occasionally, bringing updates from the church community and sharing stories about my mother. She would be proud, he said one afternoon, not just of how you handled everything, but of who you've become because of it. I transformed my mother's house into a sanctuary for women escaping difficult situations, honoring her memory by helping others find their strength. The security cameras that had caught James and Sophia's betrayal now protected women rebuilding their lives. Last week, I received a letter from Sophia. She was apologizing, claiming she regretted everything. I placed it unopened in a box with James's similar attempts at reconciliation. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. My mother's last gift hadn't just been the evidence to fight back, it had been the wisdom to know my worth. She taught me that sometimes the biggest betrayals lead to the most profound freedom. Standing in her garden, surrounded by the blooming life she planted, I felt at peace. James and Sophia had thought they could break me by choosing my darkest moment to strike. Instead, they'd unleash a strength they never knew I possessed. A strength my mother had always seen in me, had carefully nurtured, and had protected even from beyond. In trying to destroy me, they'd actually set me free. And that, perhaps, was the greatest justice of all. My mother's voice seemed to whisper in the evening breeze. See, darling, sometimes the best revenge is living well. And that's exactly what I intended to do, live well, help others, and honor the incredible woman who taught me that true strength often comes disguised as betrayal. The security cameras still recorded, but now they captured stories of healing and hope. My mother would have liked that, turning instruments of protection into tools of transformation. In the end, her legacy wasn't just about surviving betrayal, it was about thriving despite it. The text came while I was finishing my shift at the hospital. Guess what I found in your dad's office? Your precious college fund. Thanks for the early inheritance, sis. Time to live my best life. My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. Instead, I felt an odd sense of calm as I read Amanda's gloating message. My stepsister had finally taken the bait I'd spent months carefully laying out. My name is Olivia Chin, and at 26, I'm a resident surgeon who's learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply being 10 steps ahead. You won't believe what your sister just did. My dad's voice trembled through the phone 20 minutes later. Amanda found the account documents and, Olivia, I'm so sorry. She took everything. How much? I asked, keeping my voice steady as I changed out of my scrubs. $500,000. Your entire college fund. She transferred it all to her account this morning. I only just found out. He sounded devastated, probably remembering how my late mother had set up that fund, adding to it every month since I was born. It's okay, Dad, I said, surprising him with my calmness. Actually, can you come over tonight? There's something you need to know. Amanda's next text buzzed through, shopping spree time. Always knew being your stepsister would pay off someday. You were so stuck up about your precious college fund, never sharing a dime. Well, guess what? It's all mine now. I smiled, thinking about the real college fund, safely tucked away in an offshore account my mother had set up before she passed. The account Amanda found, that was the trap I'd set 3 months ago when I first discovered her snooping through Dad's office. The college fund documents she found were perfect forgeries, leading to an account I'd set up specifically for this purpose. Every dollar in it was carefully sourced and documented, with a clear trail leading back to some questionable transactions I'd discovered while going through my stepmother Patricia's old financial records. You see, 6 months ago, I found evidence that Patricia had been running a small-scale money laundering operation through her real estate business. Nothing too obvious, just enough to supplement their lifestyle and fuel Amanda's shopping addiction. I kept that information to myself, biding my time. Then I noticed Amanda going through Dad's files late at night, clearly looking for something. It didn't take much to figure out what. She'd always been jealous of my college fund, constantly complaining about how unfair it was that I had free money while she had to work retail. So I created a trail of breadcrumbs. A carelessly hidden folder in Dad's desk. Bank statements showing regular deposits, a forgotten sticky note with account details. Dad arrived at my apartment that evening, looking exhausted. Olivia, I've already called the police. But Amanda's claiming you gave her permission to access the account. Patricia is backing her up, saying you mentioned wanting to share it with your sister. I gestured for him to sit down and pulled out my laptop. Dad, there's something you need to see. But first, has Amanda spent any of the money yet? He nodded miserably. She's already transferred most of it to different accounts. Started making large purchases. Patricia says we should just let it go, that it's fair since you've already finished medical school. I turned my laptop around to show him the real bank statements. That money Amanda took. It's not my college fund. Mom was smarter than that. His eyes widened as he read through the documents. But if that's not your college fund, what did Amanda actually take? Just then, my phone buzzed with another text from Amanda. Just bought my dream car. And put a deposit down on a condo. You should be happy for me, sis. I deserve this way more than you do. I showed Dad the text, then pulled up another document. Remember how Patricia always seemed to have extra money, even when her business was struggling? I found these transactions while organizing your files last spring. The account Amanda stole from. It's filled with money that Patricia's been laundering through her real estate deals. Dad's face went pale. What are you saying? I'm saying that I checked my watch, 20 minutes, Amanda's going to get a call from the bank's fraud department. They've been monitoring that account since I flagged it 3 months ago. Every purchase she makes is being tracked. You set this up? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. No, Dad, Patricia set this up years ago. I just made sure Amanda found it. Everything she's doing now, the transfers, the purchases. It's all creating a perfect paper trail leading right back to Patricia's money laundering operation. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a call from Amanda. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what it was about. The bank would be calling her about suspicious activity, launching an investigation that would uncover years of Patricia's financial crimes. I should go home, Dad said, standing up shakily. Try to stop her before. Before what? I interrupted gently. Before she faces the consequences of her actions? She stole what she thought was my entire future, Dad. She didn't just take it, she gloated about it. Let her learn what happens when you take things that don't belong to you. He looked at me for a long moment, seeing not just his daughter but my mother's daughter, someone who knew how to play the long game. My phone buzzed again with another text from Amanda. Hey, something weird is happening with the bank. Call me S.A.P. I turned to Dad. You should probably head home. Things are about to get interesting. As he left, looking both proud and terrified, I sat back and waited for the chaos to unfold. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about letting people walk right into the traps they set for themselves. I picked up my phone to check the time just as another message came through from Amanda. What did you do? The bank is asking about money laundering. Call me now. I smiled, thinking of my mother and how she taught me to always be 3 steps ahead. The real college fund was safe. Amanda and Patricia were about to learn some hard lessons about karma, and I hadn't had to lift a finger. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being prepared. The next morning, my apartment doorbell rang at 6 a.m. I opened it to find Amanda, her perfectly maintained appearance now disheveled, mascara streaking down her face. What did you do? She shrieked, trying to push past me into the apartment. The bank froze everything. They're saying something about illegal money and investigations. I stepped aside, letting her storm in. There was no point fighting. This confrontation was inevitable. I didn't do anything, Amanda. You're the one who stole money from an account that wasn't yours. That was your college fund, she spat, pacing my living room like a caged animal. I took what you owed me after all these years of flaunting your privileges. I sat down calmly on my couch, watching her unravel. Did you really think my mother, a financial advisor, would leave my college fund so poorly protected? That money you took came from your mom's special account. You know, the one she uses for her creative real estate transactions. Amanda's face went pale. What are you talking about? The unexplained deposits, the mysterious cash buyers who never seem to exist, your shopping sprees with money that appears out of nowhere. I pulled out a folder and set it on the coffee table. It's all here. Every transaction, every fake buyer, every laundered dollar. And now, thanks to your greed, the bank is investigating all of it. You set me up, she whispered, realization dawning in her eyes. No, Amanda, you set yourself up. I just let you do what you do best, take things that don't belong to you. Her phone buzzed, Patricia's name flashing on the screen. Amanda's hands shook as she answered it on speaker. The FBI is here, Patricia's voice was panicked. Amanda, what did you do with that money? They're asking about all the transfers. I could hear male voices in the background, official-sounding terms like warrant and financial records floating through the speaker. Mom, Amanda's voice cracked. The money, it wasn't Olivia's college fund. It was yours. The one from your business. The silence on the other end was deafening. When Patricia spoke again, her voice was ice cold. Get home. Now. Amanda ended the call, looking at me with a mixture of hatred and fear. You've ruined everything. You did that all on your own, I replied. Both of you did. Years of taking advantage of Dad, stealing, manipulating. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? She grabbed her designer bag, probably purchased with laundered money, and headed for the door. This isn't over. Actually, it is. The FBI doesn't take financial crimes lightly. Better call the lawyer, sis. After she left, I called Dad. He answered on the first ring. The FBI is here, he said, his voice hollow. They're going through Patricia's office. How long have you known? About her money laundering? 6 months. I found the evidence while helping you organize the home office, remember? But I needed proof that couldn't be explained away. Amanda's theft and subsequent spending spree provided that perfectly. Why didn't you tell me? I sighed, thinking of all the times he dismissed my concerns about Patricia and Amanda's behavior. Would you have believed me? Or would Patricia have convinced you I was just being jealous again? His silence was answer enough. Throughout the day, texts flooded in from Amanda. They're taking Mom's computers. Dad won't stop crying. The FBI agent says we might face charges. How could you do this to us? I ignored them all, focusing instead on my hospital rounds. It wasn't until evening that I got the call I'd been waiting for. Mr. Harrison, my mother's old lawyer. Everything went exactly as you predicted, he said. The bank flagged the suspicious transfers, which triggered the FBI investigation. They've uncovered quite a network of money laundering through Patricia's real estate business. And my real college fund. Safe and secure, just as your mother set it up. The offshore account hasn't been touched. Patricia and Amanda never even knew it existed. I thanked him and hung up, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. My mother had always said, keep your cards close and your enemies closer. She'd known, somehow, that I might need protection one day. Later that night, Dad came to my apartment. He looked older, tired, but there was a clarity in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. Patricia's been arrested, he said, sitting heavily on my couch. Money laundering, tax evasion, wire fraud. Amanda's being questioned as an accomplice. All these years, I never saw what was happening right under my nose. I made us both tea, a habit I picked up from my mother. You saw what you wanted to see, Dad. They counted on that. Your mother, he started, his voice catching. She would have seen through them immediately. She did, I said softly. Why do you think she set up my college fund the way she did? She knew something like this might happen. Dad looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps seeing for the first time how much I resembled my mother, not just in appearance, but in foresight and strength. I'm sorry, he said, for not protecting you better, for letting them make you feel like an outsider in your own home. I took his hand, feeling the years of distance between us start to close. I protected myself, Dad, just like Mom taught me to. My phone buzzed with another text from Amanda. The FBI is charging Mom. This is all your fault. You've destroyed our family. I showed it to Dad, who read it with a sad shake of his head. She still doesn't get it, does she? This isn't about you. It's about their choices. Some people never learn. I agreed. They're so used to blaming others that they can't see their own responsibility. As Dad left that evening, he paused at the door. Your mother would be proud of you, not just for protecting yourself, but for being smart enough to let them reveal who they really are. I smiled, thinking of the white envelope in my desk drawer, the one containing a letter Mom had left with Mr. Harrison to be given to me when I needed it most. Inside, she'd written, sometimes the best defense is letting your enemies think they've won. Watch, wait, and let them defeat themselves. She'd known, somehow, that I'd need these lessons one day, that I'd face people who would try to take what was mine. And she prepared me, not just with a protected college fund, but with the wisdom to handle those who would try to harm me. As I got ready for bed that night, one final text came through from Amanda. We're going to lose everything because of you. I didn't respond. She'd lost everything because of her own choices, her own greed, her own belief that she could take whatever she wanted without consequences. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about letting justice take its natural course. 6 months after Amanda's failed attempt to steal my college fund, I sat in a courtroom watching Patricia and Amanda face sentencing. The FBI's investigation had uncovered far more than just money laundering, years of tax evasion, wire fraud, and a network of fake property deals that have funded their lavish lifestyle. Patricia stood before the judge, her designer clothes replaced by modest business attire, trying to maintain her dignity as the charges were read. Amanda sat behind her, head down, no longer the confident bully who texted me gloating about stealing my future. The defendant, Patricia Wilson, is sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, the judge announced, her voice firm. Additionally, all assets connected to the illegal activities will be seized. Amanda, charged as an accomplice for her role in spending and transferring the laundered money, received 3 years of probation and a substantial fine. Her dream of an easy life, funded by stolen money, had crumbled spectacularly. As they were led out of the courtroom, Amanda caught my eye. The hatred in her gaze had been replaced by something else. Understanding, perhaps, that her own greed had been her undoing. Dad waited for me outside the courthouse, looking both relieved and exhausted. "It's finally over," he said, running a hand through his graying hair. "Almost," I replied. "There's something I need to show you." We drove to a small cafe where my mother and I used to have Saturday brunches. Once seated, I pulled out an envelope, the one she'd left with Mr. Harrison. "Mom wrote this letter before she died," I explained, handing it to him. She knew Patricia wasn't what she seemed. She saw through the act from the beginning. Dad's hands trembled as he read. "My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, then someone has tried to take what's rightfully yours. I've watched Patricia since your father started dating her, seeing how she manipulates situations for her benefit. Trust your instincts about her. They're the same instincts I have. The real college fund is protected, but that's not the most important thing I'm leaving you. I'm leaving you the wisdom to handle people like Patricia and Amanda. Don't fight fire with fire. Let them burn themselves out. Take care of your father. He's a good man who sometimes sees the best in people who don't deserve it. All my love. Mom." Dad wiped his eyes, folding the letter carefully. She knew all along. Why didn't she say anything? Would you have believed her? I asked gently, or would you have thought she was just jealous of your new relationship? He nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. She protected you the only way she could, by teaching you to protect yourself. Later that evening, I visited Mom's grave, placing fresh flowers beside her headstone. I sat there for a while, telling her about everything that had happened. "You were right, Mom," I said softly. "Sometimes the best way to deal with people like Patricia and Amanda is to let them think they've won. They do all the work of destroying themselves." My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda, sent from her mother's prison. "I hope you're happy. We've lost everything." I didn't respond. She still didn't understand that this wasn't about happiness or revenge. It was about justice, about consequences finally catching up with their actions. Dad's been different since the trial. He's more present, more aware. We have weekly dinners now, slowly rebuilding our relationship without Patricia's manipulative presence between us. Sometimes he asks about the real college fund, but I keep those details private. Mom taught me well. Some cards are best kept close to the chest, even with those you love. As for Amanda, last I heard, she's working retail again, living in a small apartment, learning the hard way that honest work is better than easy money. Sometimes consequences are the best teachers. My mother's final lesson wasn't about money or protection. It was about patience, wisdom, and letting people reveal their true nature. In trying to steal what they thought was my inheritance, Patricia and Amanda lost everything they had. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply having the wisdom to step back and let justice take its course. And that college fund they never found. It's still growing, safely tucked away. A reminder that my mother's love and protection extend far beyond her time with me. Some legacies can't be stolen, no matter how hard people try. Pack your bags, Emma. Your time living off my brother's wealth is over. Jessica's voice rang through the house, dripping with satisfaction. I stood in my kitchen, gripping my coffee mug as my sister-in-law paraded around like she owned the place. Behind her, my husband Marcus leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, wearing that expensive new watch his 24-year-old assistant had probably picked out. My name is Emma Sullivan, and at 35, I was watching my 12-year marriage crumble while my sister-in-law took inventory of what she claimed her brother's mistress would want to keep. "You can't just throw me out," I said calmly, taking another sip of my coffee. The familiar taste grounded me even as Jessica's shrill laughter pierced the air. "Actually, we can. Marcus never registered your marriage properly, did you, brother dear?" She turned to him with a triumphant smile. "Which means technically, You were never really married. Everything belongs to him." Marcus finally spoke, his voice carrying that newfound coldness I'd grown familiar with over the past few months. "Megan needs a fresh start, Emma. And this house, well, it's perfect for her. Young, modern, unlike some things around here." I felt the sting of his words but kept my expression neutral. After 15 years together, 12 of them married, Marcus had decided his assistant Megan was his future. The same Megan who'd been sending him late-night texts for months. The same Megan who'd somehow convinced him that our marriage registration had been mishandled. Jessica circled the kitchen island, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floors that I'd chosen 3 years ago during our renovation. "You know what's funny?" she mused, running her finger along the marble countertop. "All those years you spent playing the perfect wife, acting like you belonged in our family, and now look, you'll be homeless by the weekend." I placed my mug in the sink, taking care to rinse it thoroughly. "Some habits die hard." "Is that what you think?" "Oh please," Jessica scoffed. "Don't try to act tough now. We all know you came from nothing. No family money, no connections, just a small-town girl who got lucky with my brother." "Well, your luck's run out." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. For a moment, I caught a glimpse of the man I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. The one who used to defend me against his sister's casual cruelty. But that man disappeared as quickly as he'd surfaced. "Emma," he said, attempting to sound reasonable, "you can stay with your friend Sarah until you figure things out. I'll even give you some money too." "How generous," I interrupted, my voice steady. "But that won't be necessary." Jessica laughed again, the sound reminiscent of breaking glass. "Are you delusional? This house belongs to the Sullivan family. Our grandmother left it to Marcus. You have no claim to it." I walked to the study, aware of their confused stares following me. The antique desk by the window had been my favorite spot in the house. Not that Jessica or Marcus ever noticed. They were too busy counting their inherited wealth to appreciate the actual treasures their grandmother had left behind. "You know," I said, opening the desk's hidden compartment, "your grandmother and I used to have tea here every Wednesday. She loved telling stories about the family history, about building this estate from nothing." I pulled out a sealed envelope, aged but intact. "She also loved to talk about trust and loyalty." Marcus stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" "What's that?" "This." I held up the envelope. "This is the real family trust document. The one your grandmother amended 3 months before she died. The one she gave me for safekeeping because, in her words, only someone who truly loves this house will protect its legacy." Jessica's face paled. "You're lying. All the trust documents are with our family lawyer." "Are they?" I smiled, remembering the last conversation I'd had with Marcus's grandmother. She'd seen right through her grandchildren's materialistic facade. "Maybe you should call Mr. Patterson. He helped your grandmother make these changes after all." Marcus reached for the envelope, but I pulled it back. "Don't worry," I said, gathering my keys. "Mr. Patterson has copies. In fact, he's expecting my call." I headed for the door, pausing to look back at their stunned faces. "Oh, and Jessica, you might want to hold off on measuring for new curtains. Something tells me Megan won't be needing them." As I walked to my car, I could hear Jessica's shrill voice demanding answers from Marcus. But I wasn't worried. Their grandmother had taught me more than just the value of family history. She taught me the importance of being prepared. I pulled out my phone and dialed Mr. Patterson's number. It was time to show them exactly what their grandmother's legacy really meant. Mr. Patterson's office hadn't changed in the 15 years I'd known him. The same leather chairs, the same towering bookshelves, even the same slight scent of pipe tobacco that reminded me so much of Marcus's grandmother. The only difference today was the tension in the air as Marcus and Jessica sat across from me, their faces a mix of anger and barely concealed panic. "This must be some kind of mistake," Jessica insisted, her manicured nails drumming against the armrest. "Grandmother would never." "Actually," Mr. Patterson interrupted, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, "Mrs. Sullivan was quite clear about her wishes." He opened the trust document I kept safe all these years, along with his own copy. 3 months before her passing, she made significant amendments to the family trust. Marcus leaned forward, his jaw tight. "What kind of amendments?" The elderly lawyer cleared his throat. "The main property, including the house and surrounding grounds, was placed in a separate trust. The sole trustee." He paused, looking directly at me, his Emma. That's impossible. Jessica shot up from her chair. She's not even legally married to Marcus. She's nobody. Mr. Patterson raised an eyebrow. Regarding the marriage, I have some clarification there as well. He pulled out another document. Your grandmother personally ensured their marriage was properly registered. She kept a copy here in my office. I watched the color drain from Marcus's face. All his plans, all his assumptions about our invalid marriage crumbled in an instant. But why? Marcus finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why would grandmother do this? Perhaps, Mr. Patterson said, you should read her letter. He handed Marcus an envelope I'd never seen before. Marcus's hands shook as he read aloud. My dearest grandchildren, if you're reading this, then Emma has finally opened the envelope I entrusted to her. I've watched for years as you took our family's legacy for granted, measuring its worth only in dollars and cents. But Emma, she understood. She spent time with me, listened to our family's stories, appreciated the history in every room of that house. While you saw property values, she saw memories. While you counted square footage, she preserved photographs and restored old furniture. The truth is, the Sullivan legacy isn't about money. It's about honor, dedication, and love. Emma has shown more of these qualities than either of you. Marcus, my dear boy, if you're reading this with your wife by your side, cherishing what you've built together, then perhaps I was wrong. But if you're here because you've forgotten the value of loyalty and family, then I made the right choice. The house and the responsibility of preserving our family's true legacy belongs to Emma. With love and hope for wisdom, Grandmother Sullivan. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica had sunk back into her chair, her earlier bravado completely deflated. Marcus stared at the letter, reading it over and over, as if hoping the words would somehow change. There's more, Mr. Patterson added, shuffling through his papers. Mrs. Sullivan also left specific instructions about the family's business holdings. Jessica's head snapped up. The company's shares. Yes. Upon any attempt to contest Emma's position as trustee, or any proven infidelity within the marriage, he glanced meaningfully at Marcus. 30% of the Sullivan Group shares would be transferred to the charitable foundation Emma helps run. I sat there, absorbing the magnitude of what Marcus's grandmother had done. She hadn't just protected me. She'd ensured that her family's legacy would be preserved one way or another. She knew, Marcus said suddenly, looking at me. Somehow she knew I would. That I might. She knew people, I corrected gently. She understood that sometimes we need consequences to remind us of what matters. Jessica stood up abruptly. This isn't over. We can contest this, Marcus. She can't just. Actually, Mr. Patterson interjected. Any legal contest would trigger the share transfer clause immediately. The foundation would become a major stakeholder in Sullivan Group. Is that what you want, Jessica? As Jessica sank back into her chair, defeated, I thought about all the Wednesday afternoons I'd spent with their grandmother, drinking tea and listening to her stories. She taught me about more than just family history. She taught me about strength, patience, and the importance of standing your ground. I gathered my belongings and stood up. Mr. Patterson, thank you for everything. Marcus, Jessica, I'll be at the house if you need to collect any personal items. Just call first. As I reached the door, Marcus called out, Emma, wait. Please. We can talk about this. I turned back one last time. You know where to find me. I'll be in the study, having tea, just like your grandmother taught me. A month passed and autumn painted the Sullivan estate in shades of gold and crimson. I sat in the study, sipping tea from Mrs. Sullivan's favorite china cup, when Sarah dropped by with dinner. I still can't believe it, she said, settling into the armchair by the window. All those years you spent with their grandmother, none of us knew she was planning this. I smiled, remembering the quiet afternoons with the elderly woman who'd become more of a mother to me than a grandmother-in-law. She always said the best surprises come wrapped in patience. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Through the window, I spotted Marcus's car in the driveway. He'd been trying to reach me for weeks, leaving messages about wanting to talk, about making things right. Should I go? Sarah asked, but I shook my head. No, stay. Whatever he has to say, he can say it in front of my real family. Marcus looked different when I opened the door, humble somehow. The expensive watch was gone, replaced by the simple one I'd given him years ago. He carried a familiar wooden box under his arm. "Emma," he said softly, "can we talk?" I led him to the study, where Sarah's presence clearly surprised him. He hesitated before sitting down, placing a box carefully on the desk. "I found this in my office," he began. It's grandmother's recipe box. The one she used to keep all her special occasion dishes in. I thought you should have it." I recognized the box immediately. Mrs. Sullivan and I had spent countless hours going through those recipes, her elegant handwriting telling stories of family gatherings and holiday traditions. "Megan left," he continued, his voice thick with regret. "After the trust revelation, after everything came out, she said she didn't sign up for this kind of drama." He laughed bitterly. "Turns out she was more interested in the Sullivan name than in me." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, seeing him in pain didn't bring me joy. "Jessica's different too," he added. The threat of losing those shares, it made her realize how close we came to destroying everything grandmother built. "She's been going through old family photos, asking about the stories you and grandmother used to talk about." I poured another cup of tea, offering it to him out of habit. He took it, his hands shaking slightly. "I was so wrong, Emma, about everything. I got caught up in the excitement of something new, something that made me feel young again. I forgot what real love looks like." Sarah shifted in her chair, a silent reminder of her presence and support. "Your grandmother knew," I said quietly. "She knew that love isn't about excitement or youth. It's about building something together, preserving what matters, creating a legacy worth protecting." Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. Is there any way we can try again? I know I don't deserve it, but—" "No," I interrupted gently. "We can't go back, Marcus. Your grandmother didn't create this trust to save our marriage. She did it to save her family's legacy. And that's what I intend to do." I opened the recipe box, pulling out a folded paper tucked between the pages. "Look what I found last week. Her Christmas pudding recipe. The one she made every year. The one you and Jessica loved so much as children." His eyes lit up with recognition. "I remember. She never wrote it down, said it had to be passed on in person." "She taught it to me," I said softly. "The Christmas before she died. Said someday I'd need to teach it to the next generation of Sullivans." Marcus wiped his eyes. "You were always more of a Sullivan than I was." "No," I corrected him. "I just understood what it meant to be one. Your grandmother saw that. That's why she trusted me with this house, with these memories." Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand, a gesture that spoke volumes about true friendship and support. "The holidays are coming up," I said, standing to walk Marcus to the door. "I'll be making her Christmas pudding. You and Jessica are welcome to join us, not as husband and wife, but as family. That's what your grandmother would have wanted." Marcus paused at the doorway. "Thank you, Emma, for preserving not just the house, but the heart of what grandmother built." After he left, Sarah and I returned to the study. The evening light filtered through the windows, casting warm shadows on the antique desk where Mrs. Sullivan and I had spent so many afternoons. "You know," Sarah said, "she'd be proud of you, not just for standing your ground, but for understanding what she was really protecting." I picked up the recipe box, running my fingers over its worn edges. Inside were more than just recipes. They were stories, traditions, pieces of a legacy that would live on through the generations. "She used to say that a house is just walls and windows," I replied, "but a home is built with love, understanding, and forgiveness. That's the real Sullivan legacy." As the sun set over the estate, I felt at peace. This house, these memories, this legacy, they were exactly where they belonged, and so was I.